Here I am. It's Friday night, and you know what that means. It's time for Around the Table. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining me tonight. Listen, share this broadcast with someone. Let them know that we are here sitting around the table. I am Vision Coach Alicia, and I am so excited to be here with you tonight as every Friday night. And as usual, I do have a very special guest. I am so excited tonight because I am going to be sitting around the table with someone that we both going to get to know at the same time. It is always so exciting every Friday night when I can bring a guest up and have them sit around the table with us. So I'm going to do that right now. And here she is. Here's our guest tonight. Hi, how you doing tonight?
I am so well and so blessed. So thank you so much for inviting me, for having me around the table. Thank you.
Well, let me tell you, I've been anticipating your arrival and you are here. And I'm excited because you have two books. And so that gives me a
Yes.
whole lot to talk about tonight uh, um, with you. And your author's name is Renee Tate, correct?
Yes, it is. That
And
is correct.
yeah, and I love that the anticipation. People, when you give yourself an author's name, it lets people know figure this out. So I like that the mystery of who it is. And listen, everyone, guess where you are tonight? It's Friday night, and you are around the table. This is a place for authors, coaches, speakers, women entrepreneurs, and small business owners. And I invite you on Friday nights to come on and sit around the table with us. Get your favorite beverage and just sit. Tonight, I have water in a bottle. And so I just want you to know that I am excited to be doing this interview tonight. It's always great when I can learn and meet someone new. And guess what? This is the first time I'm actually speaking with Ernestine. And so let's get started tonight. I never do a bio, but what I would like you to do is just tell the people a little bit about you and who you are.
Okay. My name is Ernestine Tate Kamak, long name. And I actually grew up in the Carolinas where I am currently residing right now. But I spent most of my adult life in California. I am married. My children are adult children. Thank goodness for that. And so we have quite a large combined family. So generally, when I tell people how many children we have, with the two of us, they just sort of chuckle because they can't believe it. So I'll just throw it out there. We have a total of 14 um, combined children. So we just
Okay.
stopped counting. Yeah, we stopped counting grandchildren and great grandchildren. And so we're great grandparents. And so, yeah, so we've, like I say, we relocated from California to here in 2019. I did a variety of things. Well, while in California, I worked for about 30 plus years for Department of Interior, and I really enjoyed that. But I think my passion has always been writing, getting to know people, interpersonal communications and relationships. And so that's pretty much me in a nutshell. I really love to read.
Great. And obviously, you like to write, but we're not
I
going to
like
just
it.
skip over those 14 children. This is a blended family of 14 children.
Yes, it is. So I will tell you, I birthed two, we adopted one, so you can figure out where the rest came from.
Came from. Okay, got it,
Yes.
got it. Well, welcome to Around the Table. And I am so excited that you chose to be here with me tonight. I'm always excited to meet new people, new authors, and just, sit down, chop it up, get to know you,
Hmm.
get to know your work. So let's begin here with your work. You've done two books, correct?
Correct. So
Okay.
far, I've
So
done two
far.
books
Right.
so far.
You are not going to limit yourself because there's more books that are going to come from you. On this
Oh
show,
yes.
we do engage with our audience. So at some point I will look over and see what our audience is saying and bring them in the room with us so they can sit around the table. So Renee, let's talk about culture and conflict. When did you write this book?
I wrote this book, Alicia, in around 2018 or so.
Okay.
But it actually was published in 2019.
Okay.
So right pretty much before I left California. And so that was it. But the book was in the making for quite a long time, actually, probably for maybe a good 2 years or so before
Okay.
I actually decided to publish it. So it was actually my husband that encouraged me to publish the work. And so I did the work as a result of working on my doctorate in religious studies with a concentration in conflict management. And
Well,
I did
great.
that. Yeah, I did that study because I was really interested in helping churches that were having issues with conflict within the congregation. So I really thought once I retired from federal service I was going to go into that particular line of work. I guess I did, but it wasn't a paid line of work.
I understand. I understand. Well, you know what? Tell me a little bit about this book, Culture and Conflict. Let's start there with that book.
Okay. Well, what the book is to me and for me was the way of looking at how we as African Americans deal with conflict within our religious organizations. As I was doing my doctoral studies, it was very apparent to me in the literature that we discussed. We, as African Americans, were not necessarily included in the literature that was discussed. And so, out of my curiosity, I wanted to know, do we as a people handle conflict differently in our churches? And so, as I was preparing, to do my dissertation and whatever, even my advisor was sort of baffled because she was saying it's going to be difficult to do it because there's not a lot out there, which really just confirmed my suspicion, but I took it on anyway. And so I did a lot of literary reviews, and then I did a lot of sending out questionnaires and asking people to respond. And so it's just really interesting to me, how we as a people, as African Americans, I think we're very faith based. And so I was hopeful in thinking as a result of that, we would handle conflict within our congregations differently. But that is not the case.
Not the
However,
case.
I think the reasons that we choose not to are different from other congregations.
Nations. Well,
Yeah.
tell me what is one of those that you have found that's the difference.
The difference is, I think, generally, as a people, we don't want people in our business.
Big one.
We don't want people in our business. So, where you will find other congregations that may be more willing and open to invite third parties into the situation to do mediation or conflict resolution, generally, as African Americans, we're not those people. So we will talk about it among ourselves, or we will choose to address it in other ways, such as I call it, walking with your purse, which means that I'll come to church, but I'm not going to give. And if I do give, then I'm going to take ownership of the gift. And so now I'm going to try to run the church by the money that I give, or the fact that I'm just going to come and warm the pew, and I'm just not going to have too much to do with anyone while I'm there. So it's an interesting dynamic, it really is. And even
Okay.
in doing the questionnaires and sending things out, that was some of the responses that came back to me from pastors of different congregations. And one person was very specific. That individual said, "I wish you well, but I'm not going to share what's going on in my congregation."
Wow.
So although
Wow.
the work would, everything that was published was anonymous, nothing was attributed to any particular entity. However, that was not enough for that person to feel comfortable with me having the information to publish. We just don't want people in our business. And I think it's probably just across the board and not just in religious organizations. We find,
In life
these things
itself, in life in
in life.
general, people,
And
right,
mental health and
yes.
other things like that. Even our children, maybe having children out of wedlock or whatever. Sometimes we just hold on to it, not so much probably in this younger generation, but in the older generation, we just don't want people in our stuff.
And we do it and justify it by calling it privacy. We want to have our
Yes.
privacy. But let me ask you this. Um, Culture and conflict.
Hmm.
Give me an example of culture and conflict within your writing.
Okay, so the culture would be who we are as a people, and
Hmm.
knowing that we have our own culture, we have our own way of doing things, and that didn't start when we came to this America. It started way back when. And so, although, people would like to think that somehow we became religious when we got here, that's not the case. We brought our culture with us here. And so that's the cultural piece that I, was looking at and going all the way back to before we, came here as slaves and began to build and start our own churches. What was our culture like? What did we bring forward? The conflict piece, of course, is just what it says, conflict, and not necessarily conflict, because we know that conflict can be positive and it can be negative. Because some great ideas are born out of conflict. Some of the churches were born out of conflict. If you look at the AME church itself, one of the oldest or the oldest, Black institution, Black churches, it was born out of conflict because Richard Allen took what was going on with Methodism and applied that to the church. And the church was born because they were not able to kneel and pray in a particular church, and he said, we will start our own
Own
church.
church,
And
yes.
that's what happened. And then if you look at over time how other denominations came out of African Methodist Episcopal, the Episcopal Church, you will see some of that was out of conflict, because you have, say, the AMEs, and then you have the AME Zions, then you have the
Yes,
AMECs,
yes.
and
There's,
it just goes, and then the Baptists, because somewhere along the
yes.
way people didn't like the
What?
governance of the church, or the construction of the church, or
Hmm.
how the institution, was formulated, and so they said, well, we don't like this, we'll go do
I'll
something else.
I'll do my own. Isn't that
I'll do my
isn't that
own thing.
interesting how,
Hmm.
we make those decisions. We don't like something, we don't like how it's going, let's just add something else instead
Hmm.
of trying to resolve conflict.
Right.
And that's very interesting in our culture, as African Americans, that we really do that. So let me ask you this. In writing this book, what message is it that you really want your author to get out of culture and conflict? This particular book that you wrote.
Well, I want people to understand that culture and that conflict in and of itself, like I said, can be either positive or negative. We know we're going to have conflict. It's just the way in which we react and respond that makes all of the difference in the world. And I would hope that in reading it, we can all see ourselves, because even if you're 1/100th a percent of the conflict, you have to own your part of the conflict. It's never all someone else. And so maybe in reading the book, people will get a reflection and maybe see how they themselves have been handling conflict, or see how conflict has been handled within their congregation, and
Mhm.
maybe be able to offer some type of solution or
Solution.
remedy
Yes,
to help congregations not to divide when they have conflict, because the churches represent Christ and we are his ambassadors on earth. And so when we are divided, it we have to think about how that appears to the rest of the world. But I
exactly.
will say, even going back and looking at the Bible, we find conflict there. Conflict, so it's nothing new.
New under the
And
sun.
it's
Exactly.
nothing new, and
Exactly.
Jesus knew that. He knew that we were going to experience conflict. And so he gave us a model. The Bible gives us a model on how to handle conflict, but
Yes.
we don't do that model. And within our churches and congregations, we're not very versed or trained on how to discipline people within our congregations. And so we don't. We have pastors of churches in churches that we expect for them to be the be all and end all. And it's impossible. It's impossible to be the preacher, the teacher, the mediator, the facilitator, visit the sick, write the sermons, preach, do
That is
funerals,
why.
weddings.
That's why one of the things within the church is that we learn what are the giftings of the people within your congregation, so that you know where. See, I pastored a church for 14 years, so I'm right up
Okay.
there and I understand exactly what you're talking about. So let me ask you this. Um, what is it that you really would like someone that have read this book to take away from reading this particular book?
I would like for someone that is really interested in culture and conflict in African American congregations to take what I've done a step farther. Do some additional, research, and put the message out there as well. Share it with pastors or anyone else, within their congregation. Have a discussion about it. Be open and be real about it, because we have to stop hiding the fact that we have these conflicts, and we need to embrace the fact that we do, and come up with solutions and how to do it. I don't think that I'm going to be the person to write another book about that, but I see the need for it,
Yes.
particularly since we've gone through COVID, and that's really changed the way we church, if you
Yes.
will. And I'm wondering if it's changed the way our younger generation is approaching churches, and then what it means for the older generations, because we're live streaming, we're doing all of these different things, and some of our older people are not that versed and may not have those capabilities. So where do they fit in this, and does that generate for them a personal conflict? So
Yeah.
I think it's the subject that I would like to see somebody take on and expand. But in the meantime, I would really be hopeful that people would actually, number one, read the book.
Yes. Yes.
Read the book, share the book, share it with your congregation, share it with your deacons, share it with your leadership teams, and have a discussion about it.
That's great information that you're sharing. What people can actually do with the book, they can actually use it as a teaching method, is what you're saying.
Mhm.
Listen, you are sitting around the table tonight, and I am your host. My name is Alicia. I am your vision coach. And tonight I am here with my guest author, Renee Tate. We're discussing her book, Culture and Conflict. Renee, let's just jump over and see if there's any questions being asked in the. Thank you so much, Dr. Patricia Goodman, for sharing. We appreciate that. And Sharon Pack, thank you for being here with us. Teresa, thank you so very much. Yes, she says, this is a comment. Yes, Abraham and Lot had conflict. Yes,
Yes.
yes. Abraham and Lot.
Yes.
There's conflict wherever we are, but it's how we handle conflict that is,
Exactly.
how do we handle it when it's in our midst? Thank you all so much. You all please share this out if you can to someone else so that they can come in and join us tonight. Listen, um, do you have a copy of that book sitting anywhere near you that you could pick it
I
up and show
do.
them
I
what it
do.
looks like, the cover? There you go.
Let's see what it
Culture
looks like.
and Conflict. This book, I think you need to read it for education purposes, number one. And then number two, so that you have a reference of what you may be able to do. Because what you just said that was so important is you would like others as well, not just you, to get in on this topic and understand. And it comes with some research in order to do it. How much is the book?
The book is $15.
Okay, and where is it available?
You can get it Amazon.
Okay,
Yes, you get Amazon, and it's also at Barnes and Nobles.
okay.
And if someone would like a signed copy, then they can put it in the chat, and I can get the information from you, and or through Messenger, and send them a signed copy. We can talk about the transfers
Awesome.
of funds, but I would definitely be willing to send them a signed copy.
Okay, listen, you've tuned into Around the Table, and tonight my guest is Ernestine, and we are discussing, and her pen name is Renee Tate, and we're discussing her first book, Culture and Conflict. We know so often in our culture there's always conflict. I remember first when I was young moving to a big city such as New York, and you would think I was the only person living there with an accent because everyone would ask, "Well, where are you from?" I started to feel like I was someone exotic, after a while because my culture was different. My food was different from a lot of things that was there. Unless I went to a particular place in New York, Brooklyn, for instance, they
Hmm.
knew more of the West Indian culture because more people settled there. Now it's completely different. But that time, way back then, I felt at times like I was an alien. I felt that I did not fit in. And a lot of times that's why we have conflict with different cultures and what we do. So that book, I think, is going to be a great read. I want you to go. How much is that particular read?
$15.
Okay, great. And so listen, you can get it on Amazon.com. Again, you can get it on Barnes and Noble. Go get you a copy. Let's get educated. Let's support our authors and our guests that are writing and sharing information with us that will help us get more educated to things around us. This book was bought somewhere around the pandemic, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. And so when you are in situations like that, you start to become enlightened, you start to notice things differently. And so if any of you out there have a book in you, just start writing or start recording and watch it manifest, and maybe one day you can come on Around the Table. Again, this is a place where we showcase authors, coaches, speakers, women entrepreneurs, and small business owners. All you have to do is go into my DM and let me know that you'd like to come on the show, and I will be happy to book you and get you on here with me. Now, let's talk about this. Um, when did you actually start to write, and how did you find the process of writing this book?
Oh my, how did I start to write? Well, I can say that when I look back over my life, I've always written in some form or fashion. It's my gift. And it's probably taken me a long time to realize that it's my gift. So I've always done writing of some sort. If I haven't been writing for myself, I've been writing for others or editing for others. And so it's just a natural, it's just what I do. It's what I enjoy doing. It's one of my passions. As I said, the book itself, it was born out of my dissertation as I was preparing the dissertation. And
Yes.
so a lot of the materials were gathered during that time. And so I just wanted to expand on it. And I had it around, but just wasn't thinking about actually publishing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had some angst about it. How am I going to do this? And where am I going to go? And, who's going to be the publisher? And not really fully understanding the process of getting it all done. But my husband continued to push me out of my comfort zone and say, you should do this. He read the manuscript, and I had another colleague at my previous church to also read the manuscript, and she said, you really need to publish this. And I thought, okay, all right, I'm hearing this, so let me find a source that I can
Okay.
use, that I
Okay.
can do this with. And so I did. And so
Okay.
that's how it really all came about. And my
Awesome.
yeah, so I'm glad, I'm glad I was pushed out of the comfort zone like you're pushing me tonight.
Yes, I know. So in a nutshell, someone that gets this book and they're reading it, what do you want them to gain from this book? What is the takeaway that you would like them to really gain from this book?
The takeaway is, as I said before, conflict is not new. It's as old as the Bible, as one of the persons in the chat pointed out with Abraham and Lot. We
Yes.
can, look at Paul and Silas. I mean, we can look at Jesus and the Sadducees and the Pharisees. They certainly had conflict,
Yes.
with him. And I mean, so it's nothing new. I would just hope that as individuals, whether we read the book or we don't read the book, that we learn, particularly within our congregations, how to resolve conflict in a manner that's pleasing to Christ, in a manner
Awesome.
that's pleasing to Christ, where we just don't take our monies and walk, or take our monies and sit on the pew, or just bury our gifts and refuse to participate in kingdom building because we have an angst with someone, that we can go to our brothers
Come
and we
on.
can share, talk to our
Yes.
brothers and tell them, when you said I hurt, can we talk about it? And we may never be close friends or buddies, but at least we can forgive, and we can move on from that, because I think it's really troubling that we can have so much unforgiveness in the midst of saying that we're Christ-like. So I would hope that it would, as I said before,
Would be a
help us to
solution.
see,
Yes.
yeah, see
Let's
ourselves
look.
and come up with a solution.
Yes, let's look at some of the comments because there's some interesting comments here. Teresa, thank you. She says this is a great presentation of your book. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And Dr. Patricia Goodman, she's saying, I'm interested in the book with an autograph.
Okay,
Okay, so you can go
okay.
back through some of the comments. Thank you so much for sharing it out. Sharon Pack, thank you so much. Listen, we understand this one thing, that there's always going to be conflict in our lives, but it's how we resolve conflict. Hi, Dr. Nikki. Dr. Nikki Ziegler says she wants 10 of your books. This is one of our viewers. She actually is one of my coaches. And she says,
Okay.
I want 10 of your books. And so, what we have to understand is that Teresa says Abraham and Lot had conflict, but it's how we resolve conflict. Some people don't know how to take the high road.
May I interject this?
Sure,
We're not
sure.
taught. We're not taught. And so I think I'll use myself as an example. Okay. I was ordained in the African Methodist Episcopal Church as an elder. And we have to go through what they call the Board of Examiners,
I
and
got
it's
you.
5 years. It's 5 years. The course on conflict resolution is very small and very short, which, if you're really going to deal with conflict resolution, if you're going to learn the art of mediation, if you're going to learn anything about alternative dispute resolutions processes, you studied that for months. At least give me 30 days, if nothing else. If you can't do 2 or 3
Yes.
months, give me 30 days, give me 30 days. And so I think, like I said, we're putting people in positions to deal with conflict that have not been trained on how to handle conflict, and not necessarily all the time how to handle it, but sometimes how to recognize it, because it can mask itself in lots of different ways where you don't realize that the conflict is brewing until things have gotten out of control.
Explosion comes. Yes, exactly.
Explosion. So how to recognize it, and then once you do, how to mitigate it. How to mitigate it. And I think we know, we're flesh, and we're not going to resolve every conflict or everyone else's conflict, but we can at least give ourselves an opportunity to do that.
Yes, exactly. Listen, um, this is my coach. She's just messing with me here tonight. Dr. Nikki, I'm gonna get you. I understand. I understand what you're trying to say. That's okay. Listen, what I want to do is segue into your next project that you've
Okay.
written as well. But before we do that, listen, I want to let you know that around the table is a place where we bring authors, we bring business people. This is a place where coaches, speakers, you can come and sit around the table with me and have a conversation. Just sit, talk, have a conversation, let people know who you are as I learn who you are. Because what I do is I never read the books before I get on
Okay.
here. But what I started doing, and one of the new things that I'm doing, and I would like to do it with you tonight as well, is we would love to give your book away to one of our guests tonight. And so
Okay.
the guests that can type in the comments section your author's name, not your real birth name. If you can type in the comments, and I'm going to go to the comments, the first person that typed in the comments, because I said it a few times, could type in the comments your author's name, I will send them the book. So come on, let's
Okay.
see who can get this first. Oh my goodness. Ta na 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 ta na na na. Well, anyway, let's keep going. I find this to be so very interesting that you. Oh, I thought somebody popped it in there, but Teresa, you were the one that said Abraham and Lot had conflict. I want to ask you a question.
Is this a question for me or a
For
question for
you, for
Teresa?
you, for you,
For me. Okay.
for you. I'm going to ask you a question. Do you think that there's good conflict?
I do. I do. I really do. Because some great ideas come out of conflict when we're not agreeing on how something, perhaps I just try to pull up a random thing. Perhaps we want to build a building, and someone thinks that it should be 2 stories, and someone thinks that it should be 3 stories, and someone thinks there should be an elevator, and somebody thinks there should be a handicap ramp, and
Okay.
somebody, so we're not all on the same page, and we're tied to our ideas, but we can pull them together and sometimes realize that it's not, or either or, it can be an and both. So we can have the elevator and the stairs, we can have the ramp, we can have 2 floors in one wing and 3 floors in another wing. And so everybody can walk away with a win-win. But even if your idea is not the one that's accepted, you can still feel heard. And I
Yes.
think that that's also one of the things that breeds conflict, when people feel as if they're not being heard or they're not being understood. And
Yes.
so if we can have the dialogue about it, then yeah, something good can come from it.
Guess what comes from it? Collaboration.
Collaboration.
There you
Yes.
go. There you
Yes.
go.
Yes.
So
So
this was
it's not
really
all
very good.
negative.
Yes. Hold up that book one more time before we segue so that people can see the book. Culture and Conflict is available on Amazon.com, Barnes and Noble, you said.
Yes.
And how much is the book?
$15.
$15. So listen, go ahead, get the book. I don't see anyone that have answered my question. I really want to send someone. Let me just check one more time before I go. Oh, Dr. Patricia Goodman got it. Author Renee, yes. Okay. So
Renee
you
Tate.
are the winner tonight, and we're going to have that book sent out to you. And I see Teresa Satchel, you also guessed her, but that's not her pen name. Her pen name is the correct one by Dr. Patricia Goodman. So that's the one. And the pen name, the pen author's name, that's who we're going to send that book out to. And we will do
Okay.
it off. So now, this is where we're going to go. I want you
Yes,
to
ma'am.
know that whenever you come to around the table, it's always an open forum. So before we switch to your next book, just wrap this book up by telling our listening audience what is one takeaway, one main takeaway that you would like them to get from this particular book.
The main takeaway is conflict is inevitable, but we can do it. We can do it. We can work through it. We can, as the saying says, we can agree to disagree. And when we do it, particularly within our congregations, it is our way of honoring God. That's what I like for people to take away.
Amen. That is a good thing. So, how about us going into your second book right now? I think that's a good segue into your
Okay.
second book. Poetry and Prayers. Whole completely different thought process. Okay.
Yes.
So, in this, do you have a copy of that one nearby as well?
I actually do. I do. I do. I do.
See,
This
you're
is
ready.
Poetry and Prayers.
There you
I'm
go.
ready.
Poetry and Prayer. So, tell us a little bit about that book.
Oh, this is the newest baby. And this is the book, and I should make a correction too, because with Culture and Conflict,
Uh
this
huh.
was done, like I said, around 2018, 2019.
Okay.
But this one actually was pretty much right outside of COVID when I did the random poetry and prayers. I was going through a lot of different things happening in my life. We made the transition here to North Carolina. My sister had become more ill than she was when we first moved here, and subsequently she transitioned to be with the Lord. And then after that, it was like 1 year, everything was happening. It was that, and then it was the loss of my uncle, and then last year was the loss of my mom. And so I had, I needed, I think, a release, if you will, before I left California coming here. I would write invocations for our church, and the invocations would be read at the beginning of each worship service to usher in, the presence of the Lord, to get the congregation, ready for worship in addition to the choir. And I just started writing them, and I collected them. I just kept them. And with the poetry, it was the same. Like I said earlier, I've always written. So I'd had poetry that I wrote back in the 70s and in the 80s, and I just collected them. And so I was sitting and reading them and looking at it, and I thought, I would like to put this in a book. They said they spoke a lot to me, and my hope and desire was that they would speak a lot to other people. And so that's how this came about. And thus the pen name, Renee Tate, because I looked at the first book that I did, and it's like, I don't want to use my full name. Ernestine Tate Kamak, that's a mouthful. So, what sounds more literary? What sounds more authorish? So, I thought, let's just go with Renee Tate. So, Renee being my middle name and Tate being my maiden name. And so I like the sound of it, and I went with it.
There you go. Author
Mhm.
Renee Tate. And I like it
Yes,
too. So I think you've made a good choice. So what type of
thank you.
poetry do you have in that book?
Oh, it's so many things.
Is there
I
one
can't even.
particular one that you could read just a couple lines for us?
Let me see really quick. I have stories. I have within the prayers. I have stories that I call them. I guess if I was in the classroom, I'd call them object lessons, where you may look at the yard or the grass growing, and then there's the message within that. So that's also a part of the section of prayers. And let me see if I can find something really simple.
And that's
How
good
about I
because one
read
of
you?
our viewers just said, "Can you please recite a small portion of one?" So we've got to do it. I didn't even see that
Let's see if
comment,
I can
but
give you a
we've got to do
small
it.
portion of
Yes.
one. Okay, here's a small portion of one. It's called Free Space. Got a minute? Come into my space. Sit a while. Share some time. Won't cost a dime. Talk is cheap, but I play for keeps. Sit a while. Share some time. Won't cost a dime.
Oh, I like that. I like that. That is very inviting.
Uh,
Listen, you
yeah.
are you are watching Around the Table, a place for authors, coaches, speakers, women, entrepreneurs, and small business owners. I am your host, Vision Coach Alicia, and I am so excited tonight because I have my guest with me. Her pen name is Renee Tate, and she's sharing with us tonight out of her books. Renee, let me ask you, what is the price of that book and where is it
This
found?
particular book is $20,
Uh huh.
and it is also at Amazon. It's at Barnes and Nobles. And yes,
Barnes and Nobles and
Amazon.
Amazon.com.
Yes.
Okay,
And I
great.
was trying to just kind of thumb through really quick to see if I could find something else that's really short.
Yeah.
And oh, so I have one that's called We Are People, but I think that's a little too long. But I like this one. It's called Am I? It says, sometimes I wonder if I'm too black for you. Judging from the way you want me to look, the things you want me to do. Is it because I wear my hair in locks in the watermelon garden I decided to grow? Or is it because you can't control my thoughts or the moods that flow? Is it because I wear my African garb and ankle bracelets with pride? Or is it that you have not been able to unlock the image to get inside? Sometimes I wonder if I am too black for you.
Ooh, I love it. I love it. Listen, you are a great writer. I love
Thank you.
how you brought that together. And listen, you can get this book. All you have to do is go to Amazon.com or listen, you can also, do you have a website?
I do have a website, and my website is www.atc, like Apple Tom Cat, author.com.
Okay. Are they on the website? Can someone get it from on the website?
The first book is on the website. The second book is not on the website. I have not included it on the website just yet.
Okay. Well,
So, but you can
someone can
go ahead.
DM you, or the
Yes,
email
they can.
address is running across the screen. If you want to get the book, please get in touch with her, and I think that you would have a great read. Let me just go to our comments and see. Hmm. Okay, Teresa, she says, yes, I like that. I think that I want to purchase that one. She's interested in the okay. Uh I think someone put your website up there. Is it www.atc.com?
Yes, it's
Thank you,
atcauthor.com.
Teresa, so much for catching that and putting it up there for her. And if any of you want to get a signed copy, please make sure that you DM her and get a signed copy as well. Carter details what an amazing author. Yeah, I agree with you. I think she is. I like not knowing a whole lot about my guests and learning about you um when others learn about you, because it makes me feel special. I don't want to know everything and then you come on and you're just repeating stuff. So I think that I also would like to get me a copy of that last book as well, and I'm going to do so. And if you want a signed copy, just go ahead, www.atcauthor.com. Thank you so much, Sharon, for sharing that information with us. And also, you can email her. It's going across the
And
screen.
yes, and I think the email would be the probably the best place, or just DM me. That would
Okay.
be probably the two better places. And I know for sure that I will get it, and then I can respond and
Okay.
get
Awesome.
it out to people for sure. Yes,
Okay. And
get it
what's
out
the
to
price
people
of
for
that
sure.
book again?
This one is 20.
$20. So for
$20.
$20 investment, you can have a good read. I just love what I've heard so far, and I think that I know who I'm purchasing it for as a gift. I'm actually
Okay.
purchasing it for someone as a Sharon. You are on it tonight. I'm gonna have to. You're gonna have to DM me, and I'm gonna have to send you a special guest because you've been on it tonight. Thank you so very much. Listen, as a recap tonight, my guest has written these two fantastic reads, and I want you to support this show by supporting our guests. The first book is called Culture and Conflict. Okay. The second book is Poetry and Prayers. And you can DM her and get a signed copy of any of these books, or just email her. The email address is running across the screen. Email her and get it directly, because guess what? You may be the next one to come and sit around the table with me. I'm sure you probably have a book in you that you have not yet released. Let me encourage you. If you are an author, if you are a writer, if you are an entrepreneur, if you're a business owner, this show is for you. Just DM me and let me know that you'd like to come, because this is a place for you to come and sit around the table. I have 2 slots left there in December. I think they're December 17th and December 20 something. I just have two slots left. All the Fridays are booked up. I've had to book a couple of double shows, because what I have realized is when you start to do what God tells you to do, your gift will make room for you. And I want you to come on here so that your gift can make room for you. So, before we end tonight, is there anything that you would like to say to our listening audience tonight?
Well, I would like to say to you, thank you so much. I am just so grateful. And I thank my daughter actually because she introduced me to you. And so this has just been a joy and a blessing for me. And so I just really appreciate it. I do pray that individuals will get the books. And I certainly do believe this in particular will bless your life. The prayers are appropriate. And so sometimes if you're struggling on what to say or how to pray, some great prayer starters. And I'm just really, I'm encouraged. I wrote the book and it still encourages me.
Yes,
It
yes.
still encourages me. So yes. So I'm just really, really delighted to be here and to share. And I wrote down something that I would just like to leave people with. And it says, as we move through life, we need to learn to rejoice and to celebrate the good and the not so good. The good will help you go, and the not so good will help you grow.
That is so great. See, when God gives us giftings, when God gives us talents, we're not to keep them for ourselves because He gave them to us to bless others. And tonight, you have blessed us with your gift. And I am so appreciative that you took the time to come on around the table. So, listen, everyone, let's support our author by emailing her or DMing her and get your copy of her books. The holidays are coming. Make them a stocking stuffer for someone, and also make it a personal read for yourself. And so thank you so much for coming on the show tonight and being our guest. I really appreciate you. I want to go to our listening audience one more time to make sure I haven't missed anyone before. Let's see what they are saying. Dr. Patricia Goodman, thank you so much for being with us tonight. And you won a book, and I'm going to make sure that it gets mailed out to you. Thank you so much, Dr. Nikki Ziegler, for tuning in with us tonight. Thank you so much, Teresa, for being with us tonight. We appreciate you supporting this work. Sharon, thank you so very much. And to each and every one that have come on this show tonight, I want to just say to you that your gift will make room for you. Until next Friday, I am Vision Coach Alicia, and I would like to say to you, come on back and sit around the table. So until next week, at the same time, same place, I'll see you then. God bless.
Thank you. Thanks.